In the vast, endless expanse of the galaxy there were many stories, some of them forgotten, some of them legends, and some of them lies. Among these tales was one of a human colony that had vanished. Long ago they were abandoned, left to survive on their own in a forgotten part of the universe. The galaxy had moved on, its many civilizations thriving, their eyes focused on the stars they could see, leaving the humans behind as a distant memory. No one had thought of them for centuries until now. It all started with a signal. At first it was faint, barely noticeable, a whisper in the vastness of space, a simple distress call, but one that was different from anything anyone had ever heard before. The message was coded, scrambled, and encrypted, but it was clear. It came from a human colony, lost for hundreds of years. The galaxy was stunned. A colony of humans thought to be wiped out or forgotten had sent a message, and that message was about to change everything. The signal came from a system near the edge of the galaxy, in a region that no one had explored for decades. The authorities and military forces of the galaxy took notice, but they didn't know what to expect. The general assumption was that it was an old signal, something that had been bouncing around for years, just now reaching them due to a glitch in their technology. But something about it felt different. An exploration fleet was quickly sent to investigate. The mission was clear. Find out where the signal came from, figure out who sent it, and make sure it wasn't a trap. The fleet was prepared for any possible scenario, but no one on board expected what they would find. As they approached the system, they saw it. A star system, once thought to be dead, now alive. The ships sent to investigate saw strange, unfamiliar structures orbiting one of the planets, buildings that looked new yet weathered by time. And there, sitting among them, was a fleet of ships. Massive ships, ships that were unmistakably human. The fleet's captain, Captain Vane, stared at the monitors in disbelief. "This can't be right," he muttered. "This is impossible." "Captain, the ships are definitely human-made," his first officer, Lieutenant Kara, confirmed, her voice filled with awe. "But these ships, they're unlike anything we've ever seen before." The humans had not only survived, they had thrived. Their ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. The technology was advanced, far beyond the capabilities of even the most powerful races in the galaxy. There was no sign of weakness, no sign of decay. The ships were perfect, designed with precision and power. But that wasn't the only shock. The colony on the planet below was not a small, struggling group. It was a thriving, highly organized society. The population had grown, their cities large and full of life. There were signs of industry, technology, and military strength. The humans had built an empire, hidden in the depths of space for centuries, and now they were ready to reveal themselves. Captain Vane couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. He had expected to find a broken, struggling colony, people who needed help. Instead, he found an empire waiting to rise again. "We need to make contact," Captain Vane ordered. His voice was firm, but his mind raced. "Get me a secure line," to their leader. Now. Minutes passed as the fleet's communication officer worked to establish a connection. Finally, the screen flickered to life, revealing a woman standing in a large, imposing room. She was dressed in military garb, with the emblem of the human colony prominently displayed on her uniform. Her eyes were calm, yet filled with a fierce determination. "I am Commander Lila," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. "We have been waiting for you." Captain Vane was taken aback by her directness. "Waiting for us?" he asked. "How could you have known we would come?" "We knew you would come eventually," Commander Lila replied, a slight smile playing on her lips. "And we've prepared for it. The galaxy thinks we're a forgotten relic, but we never left. We've been watching, we've been building, and now we're ready to take back what was once ours." The words hit like a shockwave. The galaxy had forgotten about humanity, but humanity had not forgotten about the galaxy. They had built something powerful, something dangerous, and they were ready to make their mark on the universe again. "Captain," Vane didn't know how to respond. He had expected to find a colony in need of assistance, but instead, he had found an empire on the rise. The implications of what he had just learned were enormous. The human colony was no longer a weak, lost group. They were strong and they were hungry for more. "We've conquered what was once ours, Captain," Commander Lila continued. "We've taken a system and now we're coming for the rest." The realization hit Captain Vane like a wave. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The human colony wasn't here to beg for help. They were here to take control. And they weren't going to stop until they had what they wanted. As the communication ended, Captain Vane sat in silence, staring at the screen. The galaxy had just been handed a challenge they weren't ready for. The lost human colony had returned, and they weren't asking for permission. They were coming to claim what was theirs. The galaxy had always been confident in its power. It had seen wars, rebellions, and conflicts that reshaped entire star systems, but none had prepared it for what was coming. The discovery of the lost human colony had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, but it wasn't until the first strike was made that the true threat became clear. The humans had been quiet, biding their time, watching. Now, they were ready. With their fleets of advanced warships and the strength of their people behind them, they made their move. The first planet to fall was a peaceful, unassuming world on the outskirts of the galaxy. Once home to a small farming colony, now an easy target for the humans. The galaxy's military forces had never thought much of this world. It was a minor system, far from the core of the galaxy, with little strategic value, but it was enough to show the galaxy what the humans were capable of. The humans descended without warning. They didn't announce their arrival, and they didn't need to. Their warships appeared from the shadows of the nearby moons, silently cutting through the atmosphere like shadows of death. Their ships were enormous, far larger than any the galaxy had ever seen. Massive war machines designed for one purpose: to conquer. At first, the inhabitants of the planet had no idea what was happening. The sky above them had always been peaceful, the stars always a distant, beautiful sight. That was until the ships appeared, blotting out the stars and casting a shadow over the land. Panic spread through the cities, but there was no place to hide. No one was prepared for what was coming. The humans didn't give them a chance to fight back. The warships unleashed devastating waves of firepower, wiping out defenses in mere moments. The ground shook as the city walls crumbled. The military forces of the planet scrambled to respond, but their efforts were futile against the might of the human fleet. The humans didn't want to destroy everything. They wanted control. The message was clear. Resistance would be crushed, but the planet would remain intact. As the planet's military commanders gathered to plan a defense, they received a message. It was simple but terrifying. The message was broadcasted across the entire planet, filling every screen and speaker. "We are the humans," the voice said, calm and unwavering. "We have returned. Your world is now ours." The planet's leaders tried to respond, to negotiate, to ask for mercy. But the humans had no interest in diplomacy. The attack was swift and decisive. Within hours, the planet's leadership had surrendered, and the human forces took control. The colony now had its first victory. Back in the heart of the galaxy, news of the attack spread quickly. No one could believe it. The humans had returned with overwhelming force and had claimed an entire planet in a matter of hours. The galaxy was in shock. How had they come back so powerful? Where had they found such strength? The galaxy's leaders scrambled to respond. The United Council called for an emergency meeting. The galaxy's most powerful races, those who thought themselves untouchable, now felt the sting of fear. They had never seen anything like this before. The humans, once weak and scattered, had become a force to be reckoned with. The fear was palpable, but there was no time to waste. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. The Council quickly mobilized its military forces. The largest fleet in the galaxy was called into action, led by Admiral Zorath of the Hegemony, a race known for its fearsome warriors. They were determined to push back the humans and restore the balance of power. The humans couldn't possibly have the strength to take on the entire galaxy, could they? Admiral Zorath stared at the star map on his command ship. his fingers tapping the table nervously. He had been through wars, fought in battles that changed the course of history. But this felt different. The humans weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to dominate, and that terrified him more than any weapon in the galaxy. "We will destroy them," Admiral Zorath declared, trying to reassure his officers. "This is just the beginning. We will show them their place." But deep down he knew it wasn't that simple. The humans had already proven themselves to be unpredictable, and their power seemed limitless. As the galaxy's fleet began its journey toward the human colony, they had no idea what awaited them. The humans had set a trap, and they were waiting. It was not just about military strength, it was about strategy. The humans had learned from their years in hiding. They had learned how to strike when no one was looking, how to fight with precision and ruthless efficiency. Back at the human colony, Commander Lila watched the galaxy's fleet approach on her ship's tactical display. She knew what they were thinking. They believed they could crush them just like they had crushed every other challenge before. But they didn't understand. They didn't understand that the humans had been preparing for this moment for centuries. "I want every ship ready," she ordered. "When they arrive, we strike first. No hesitation, no mercy." The atmosphere in the command center was tense, but there was no fear. The humans had been through worse. They had survived because they were strong, and now they were about to show the galaxy just how strong they really were. As the two fleets moved closer, the galaxy's ships grew larger on the radar. The countdown had begun. The humans were ready to fight, ready to show the galaxy that they had returned, not just to survive, but to conquer. The galaxy had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were about to pay the price. The galaxy was no longer the same. The humans had returned, and with their first strike, they had proven they were not just a forgotten race. They were a force to be feared. News of their conquest spread like wildfire, and the reactions across the galaxy were mixed. Disbelief, anger, fear, and, for a few, a strange sense of awe. But one thing was certain. No one could ignore humanity anymore. In the heart of the galaxy, the United Council gathered in an emergency meeting. Representatives from all the major races and empires assembled in a massive floating chamber that overlooked the core worlds. The mood was tense. The room buzzed with nervous chatter as the leaders tried to make sense of what had happened. How did they do it? Grand Admiral Zarek of the Vontar Empire demanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. How did they go from a forgotten colony to a power capable of conquering a whole world in a matter of hours? "We should have wiped them out when we had the chance," hissed Queen Malira, the cold, calculating ruler of the Elven Star Confederation. "Now, they've made a mockery of the galaxy." "We can't just ignore this," said Varys, the representative of the peaceful Xylan race. "The humans have proven they can defeat us. What if this is only the beginning?" The council members were divided. Some believed that humanity was a threat that needed to be dealt with immediately, while others were hesitant to engage in a full-scale war. The peaceful factions argued that they should try to negotiate, while the more militaristic races wanted to crush the humans before they grew stronger. But one thing was clear. They needed to act fast. The humans weren't going to wait for permission, and if they didn't act, they might lose everything. Admiral Zarek, a seasoned veteran of galactic wars, stood up. His eyes glinted with a mix of fear and determination. "We cannot afford to wait. We will assemble the largest fleet ever seen in this galaxy. Every race must contribute. We will fight the humans with everything we have." The council members looked at each other. They knew that the humans were a dangerous new threat. But could they truly unite against them? For centuries, the galaxy had been divided by politics, rivalry, and old grudges. Could they put aside their differences long enough to defeat a common enemy? "Who do we send to face them?" asked Queen Malira, her eyes cold and calculating. "These humans are different. We need the best, the most capable." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Admiral Zarek. He had led them through countless victories, but this was something new. This wasn't just a war. It was a struggle for the future of the galaxy. Zarek's fingers tightened on the table. "We'll send the strongest fleet ever assembled, but it won't just be about firepower. We need strategy. We need to outsmart them, outmaneuver them, and we need to hit them fast before they grow too strong." As the meeting came to a close, the leaders began preparing for war. They called on their fleets, their armies, and their finest generals. The galaxy was preparing for a battle unlike any before. Meanwhile, on the human colony, Commander Lila stood in front of a massive holographic map of the galaxy. Her team of officers surrounded her, each one focused and ready for the task ahead. Their victory over the peaceful world was just the beginning. They had claimed their first star system, and now the galaxy would know the humans had returned for good. The humans had no intention of sitting back and waiting for the galaxy to come to them. They were ready to strike again, to take control of more systems and to show that they weren't just survivors, they were conquerors. "Admiral Zarek thinks he can outsmart us," Commander Lila said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "But he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that we're not the same humans they once abandoned." Her officers nodded, knowing exactly what she meant. The humans had been forged by years of survival. They had learned to adapt, to fight, and to outthink their enemies. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now they would pay the price. The humans' next move would be strategic. They would strike where the galaxy least expected, catching their enemies off guard. Their ships were ready, their weapons were primed, and their plan was in motion. "We'll take the next system," Commander Lila continued, pointing to a star system on the map. "It's a small one, but it's strategically important. We'll use it to send a message to the galaxy. We're here to stay." Back in the galaxy's capital, the fleet began to assemble. The largest military force in galactic history was being prepared to strike at humanity's heart. The humans were being underestimated again. The Council believed they could simply overwhelm them with numbers, with strength. But they didn't realize that the humans had already seen this coming. As the United Fleet approached the next target, the human colony's second system, the galaxy's leaders were confident. They believed they had the upper hand. But what they didn't know was that they were about to walk into a trap. Commander Lila had already made her move. The human fleet was hidden in the shadows, waiting for the galaxy's forces to enter the system. They would attack without warning, using their advanced technology to disable the enemy fleet in the blink of an eye. The humans were going to show the galaxy that they were not just survivors. They were the new rulers of the stars. As the enemy fleet entered the system, Commander Lila gave the order. The trap was sprung. A barrage of firepower erupted from the human ships, catching the galaxy's fleet off guard. The first wave of attacks crippled the enemy's ships, and before the galaxy's forces could react, the humans had already gained the upper hand. The galaxy was about to learn a hard truth. The humans had returned, and they weren't going anywhere. The battle had just begun. The galaxy's greatest powers had come together, their fleets massive and filled with the most powerful ships the universe had ever seen. They believed they were ready. They believed they could defeat the humans. But they had no idea what was waiting for them. The trap set by the humans was just the beginning. Humanity's rise was far from over. As the galaxy's united fleet limped back from their failed attack, their commanders were angry, but they were also scared. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought their numbers would overwhelm the humans, but instead they had fallen right into their trap. And now the humans were no longer hiding. Back at the human colony, Commander Lila stood on the command deck, her gaze steady, her mind already focused on the next phase of their plan. The humans had taken their first victory, but they knew this was only the start. Their empire was built on survival, but now it was time to claim what was theirs by right. The galaxy would learn that humanity was not a race to be ignored. "Now, we strike," Commander Lila said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "The next phase is crucial. We'll take control of their most powerful star systems. We will show the galaxy that we are not weak, and we will not back down." Her officers nodded. They had been trained for this. They had spent years preparing for this moment. The humans had always been resilient, always fighting for survival. But now they were fighting for something more. To prove their place in the universe. To show that they were not just survivors, but conquerors. Commander Lila's first target was the heart of the galaxy, the core worlds. The core worlds were the most important, the richest, and the most heavily defended. The galaxy's leadership came from these worlds. It was the center of power, and humanity had always been kept on the outside, forgotten. But now, the humans would take control. As the human fleet prepared for their next strike, Commander Lila turned to her fleet strategist, General Harlan. "We need to take them by surprise again. We've already shown them that we can strike fast and without warning. This time we'll cripple their ability to respond." General Harlan nodded. "We've already mapped their defenses. We know their weaknesses. They won't see us coming." The plan was simple but brilliant. Hit the core worlds before the galaxy's forces could regroup. Humanity's fleet, smaller than the galaxy's united armada, was faster and more agile. They would use hit-and-run tactics to disable the most important systems, one by one, before the enemy could react. And then, once the core worlds were crippled, the galaxy would have no choice but to bow to humanity's power. Back in the galaxy's command centers, the leaders were in chaos. The first attack had failed. The second had been even worse. The humans had learned how to fight, and now they were going on the offensive. The United Fleet was scrambling to put together a new strategy, but it was clear. They were losing control. The galaxy had never faced an enemy like this. "We need to do something now," Grand Admiral Zarek said, pacing in front of the council. "The humans are taking out our most important systems. If we don't stop them now, we could lose everything." "But how?" Queen Malira asked. "We can't even track their fleet. Every time we think we've cornered them, they slip away." "The humans are using guerrilla tactics," Admiral Zarek said, his voice filled with frustration. "They're hitting us where we're weakest, and we're giving them too much room to move. We need to stop them before they take out more of our systems." The council members looked at each other nervously. They had underestimated humanity. Now, they had to face the fact that the humans were stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. "We need to focus on the core worlds," Zarek continued. "If we lose those, we lose everything. We can't let the humans take control." The leaders quickly agreed to send their remaining forces to defend the core worlds. But even as they prepared for battle, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were fighting a losing war. Humanity had proven time and again that they were not to be underestimated. The more they fought, the stronger humanity seemed to grow. Meanwhile, Commander Lila stood in her command center, looking out at the stars through the viewport. The galaxy's powers were moving to stop them, but they were too late. Humanity's rise was unstoppable. The humans had proven their strength, their resilience, and their willingness to fight for what was rightfully theirs. The galaxy had pushed them to the brink, but now they would rise above it all. "We're ready," Lila said, turning to her officers. "We take the core worlds next. We show them that humanity is not a race to be ignored. We are the future of the galaxy, and we will take what is ours." The human fleet moved swiftly, crossing the stars toward the core worlds. The galaxy's defenders were waiting, but the humans were already there, striking from the shadows. The attack was fast, brutal, and precise. The core worlds were under siege before they even knew it. In the heart of the core worlds, the galaxy's most powerful forces struggled to mount a defense. Their ships were big and powerful, but they were too slow to catch the humans. The humans were everywhere, striking at the heart of their defenses, tearing apart their military infrastructure. The galaxy's greatest powers were losing control. Humanity's rise had begun in the shadows, but now it was in full force. The core worlds were on the brink of collapse, and the galaxy had no idea how to stop it. The galaxy had made a fatal mistake. They had thought humanity was a relic of the past, something to be forgotten. But they had underestimated the will of a people who had been left behind. Now humanity was taking what was rightfully theirs, and the galaxy was about to learn that there was no turning back. The galaxy had never faced a challenge like this. Humanity once thought to be a lost relic, had become the most dangerous force in the universe. One by one, the core worlds fell. The mighty empires, the powerful fleets, and the advanced technologies of the galaxy's best forces were no match for the cunning, speed, and relentless will of the humans. And now the galaxy's leaders had no choice but to make a final stand. In the heart of the galaxy, the United Council met once again. The room was dark, the atmosphere thick with tension. The galaxy's finest generals, politicians, and military leaders stood around the table, their faces grim. The war had gone on for too long, and they were losing. Humanity had shown no signs of slowing down. Instead, they had only grown stronger, more determined. They had taken over the core worlds, and now only a few strongholds remained. "We've lost too much," Grand Admiral Zarek said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "The humans are unstoppable. We're losing the war, but we still have one option left." The council members looked at him, confused. What could they possibly do now? "We call it the last stand," Zarek continued. "If we can't defeat the humans on the battlefield, we'll do what we can to cripple them. We'll use the last of our resources to launch a final, all-out assault on their stronghold. It's our only chance." The room fell silent. The idea of a final assault was tempting. If they could destroy humanity's last stronghold, they could end the war once and for all. But there was one problem. Humanity's stronghold was heavily fortified, protected by the most advanced technology they had ever encountered. The humans had learned to fight on their own terms, and no one could predict what they would do next. "We'll need everything we have," said Queen Malira, her voice cold but resigned. "The ships, the soldiers, the weapons, everything. We can't afford to lose this last chance." Zarek nodded. "We'll need to move fast. We can't let them prepare. We strike with everything, no mercy." Meanwhile, back in the human stronghold, Commander Lila was in her command center, overseeing the final stages of humanity's plan. The war was nearing its end. The humans had taken control of the galaxy's most important worlds, but now it was time to decide what they would do next. The humans were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy, and they were ready to claim it. "Are we ready?" Commander Lila asked, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We are," General Harlan responded. "The final defense systems are in place. We have our fleet ready for the final battle." "Good," Lila said, looking out at the stars. "This is it. We've fought for this moment for so long, and now we'll see if we have what it takes to truly claim the galaxy." Humanity had been underestimated. The galaxy's leaders had thought they could be ignored, pushed aside, forgotten. But humanity was strong, and they had fought through years of abandonment and hardship. Now, they were on the verge of achieving what they had once dreamed of, taking their rightful place among the stars. But there was a question that lingered in the back of Lila's mind. After everything they had fought for, was it worth it? Was it worth the cost of so many lives, the destruction they had caused? Would they rule with power or with wisdom? The galaxy had given them no choice but to rise and fight. But now the final choice lay in their hands. The final battle was fast approaching. The galaxy's united fleet, ready for one last strike, moved toward the human stronghold. The commanders and soldiers in the fleet were tense, their minds focused on the task ahead. It would be the biggest battle the galaxy had ever seen, and it would decide the fate of humanity. As they approached the human stronghold, the galaxy's fleet launched its first wave of attacks. The humans' defenses were strong, but not impenetrable. The first wave of strikes hit hard, disabling key systems and weakening the stronghold's shields. But just as the galaxy's fleet thought they were making progress, the humans retaliated with overwhelming force. The human ships moved swiftly, dodging the galaxy's attacks with ease. The humans had perfected their tactics over the course of the war, and now they were using everything they had learned to strike back. The galaxy's fleet, though powerful, was slow compared to the humans' agile warships. The human fleet struck at the heart of the galaxy's forces, hitting their weakest points with deadly precision. In the midst of the chaos, Commander Lila watched as the battle unfolded. She knew this was their moment. The humans had proven their strength, but now they had to make a choice. Could they continue to fight until the galaxy was theirs, or would they show mercy and offer a chance for peace? "We can destroy them," Lila said, her voice filled with resolve. "We've already proven we can conquer, but it's not just about power, it's about choice. The galaxy had a chance to change things, but they chose to fight us instead of working with us. Now it's time to show them that humanity is not just a force of destruction. We are a force of change." With that, she gave the order. The human fleet pulled back, stopping their assault. Instead of continuing the destruction, they offered the galaxy a choice: submit and join humanity in a new, united galaxy, or face total destruction. Back on the Galactic Council, the leaders watched, in shock as the humans pulled back. The final assault had stopped, and for the first time in the war they saw humanity's true intention. They weren't just fighting for power, they were fighting for a new order. The council members had a choice to make: accept humanity's terms and join their new galactic empire, or fight to the bitter end.